Today, I'm excited to have guest Brett Schklar on the program. Brett is the co-founder and managing partner at Grow Powerful, an online platform that is assembling marketing professionals focused on B2B tech who can deliver expertise by serving as fractional CMOs for emerging companies. Brett, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Eric. Glad to be here.
I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today because as a fractional CMO myself and having a podcast where we focus on a lot of fractional CMO issues, this topic is obviously very near and dear to my heart. And before we sort of dive into the details of what you're doing there at Grow Powerful, if you would, just give me an expanded background. What is your career history? How did you get to this point in starting up Grow Powerful?
Yeah, like many, it's a half, about 50% intentional and 50% accidental way of getting to where I am today. I grew up in almost exclusively B2B technology, early stage software companies, telecom, rose up through the ranks between sales and marketing, back to sales, back to marketing, and really enjoyed that. Had some great startup experience with a couple of different companies, of which had exited, and it was great to ride that train. And then about 18 years ago, actually, I had some health events that made me just reconsider what I was doing. And these health issues were related to my heart. I had some problems with my heart, which is fine now, but it made me realize that I literally couldn't put my heart into something that I was doing before. And I decided that I needed to do something different. And I started a different company called Market Creation Group. And my goal was to work part-time, to do some consulting, to have some fun. Wound up growing it to about 20 people, fantastic revenues, and going from the idea of working 20 hours a week to actually working significantly more. However, I really enjoyed it. About 5 years ago, I sold that company to a private equity firm. And it was an agency that was focused on B2B technology. So it was a really good matchup. And then I decided, you know what? My health is fine. My family is fine. I'm going to go back to work for a company where I don't have to worry about running a business or chasing after the business or things like that. And it took about 9 months for me to realize that I really make a crappy employee. and I had a graceful exit from that company, but it was very obvious that, and the company honestly is no longer there. I don't think I did a great job of picking the company. I also just realized that I was not a good employee at the end of the day. And so myself and a couple of partners, people that were actually my customers who were chief marketing officers operationally in companies that were my clients, we decided to get together and to build something to really support the fractional CMO or the virtual CMO model. And so we started Grow about 20 months ago now. And we've had phenomenal success so far.
That's an interesting story. And, you know, it's always fun to hear about people's career paths and the industries that they've touched on and the jobs that they've worked in. And you rarely hear an entrepreneur that has a straight line. Usually there's some zigzags in there, some restarts, some pivots. So your story is interesting in that respect. And one thing I would love for you to comment on is, you know, we dive right into the topic of fractional CMO, but really this is a relatively new concept. I'm always amazed how many people I get into conversations with and they've never even heard the term. And there are variations floating around: virtual CMO, iCMO, on-demand CMO, et cetera. And there are an awful lot of people who call themselves consultants, but are really doing that role. And I often tell people, you know, CMO is really a Fortune 500 title, right? It's not common in smaller businesses, but it's a concept, really. A fractional CMO is a concept.
Right.
How would you describe it?
So you're spot on. I mean, you're seeing the same thing that I am, which is, you know, the concept is essentially a form of consulting, but it might be a little bit more of a specific niche of consulting. On it, you know, we work with emerging companies anywhere from, you know, $2 million to, let's say, $250 million. They're typically VC backed or private equity backed. Most of our business comes through the VC or private equity channels. They bring us in to connect with their portfolio companies. My philosophy is pretty simple. I don't think any company that's less than $1 billion needs a real CMO.
Yeah.
Just, going to put that out there. And I think they need somebody that has the entire front, the cash register side of the business, AKA a chief revenue officer. I think that the idea of the chief customer officer is becoming more and more popular, and I really love that. And that really means that there's not room for a chief marketing officer or a chief market officer. And so it's not that the CMO is being squeezed out. It's that the idea of a CMO was something people thought they really needed. But at the end of the day, they do need, but they don't necessarily need it as a function of the executive team, as a full-time person. It's more of someone to be a marketing and market consigliere to the CEO, and to have the customer be the CEO, the CRO, and in some cases, the chief customer officer.
Mm.
And when that's in place, you definitely need a marketing team, right? You need people to understand digital marketing, understand the product really well, understand content. I think that every content marketing person needs to also know how to produce shows like what we're doing here. But I don't think there's a place for a full-time chief marketing officer. And so I think that's why we're finding the virtual CMO, the fractional CMO, the iCMO becoming much more popular and being much more focused than the consultant, which in some cases has a good word, is a good word, in some cases is a bad word as well.
Yeah, consulting has a mixed reputation, right? Especially for larger companies who work with some of the big firms. It's almost like a rash that you can't get rid of. You get consultants into some of these organizations and they just never go away. But I think you're exactly right. There are a lot of people out there that are doing similar things to what a fractional CMO does. They just don't necessarily call themselves that.
Yeah.
And, having guests on the show and talking about this a lot, it's pretty well understood that this whole fractional model kind of started out in the CFO's office, right? That's really where it got its footing. And now we're seeing it expand out, not just for fractional CMOs, but we're seeing fractional anything in the C-suite.
Right.
Do you think the period of time that we're in, especially considering, economic factors and certainly COVID that we've gone through, do you think that's helped or hurt the model?
So I think that this is the springboard for the model. I think you've got, the R and R. You've got the Great Resignation, and you've got the what nobody is actually saying is officially happening, but we're all talking about it. Kind of like the weird uncle that comes to the weddings or the bar mitzvahs or the funerals. We don't talk about that weird uncle, but we'll call him Uncle Recession, and and we're in denial of that fact. But I think that between those two things, the Great Resignation, which really has been and should be hitting those CMOs really hard, and for good reasons, not bad reasons. It is hard, especially as a B2B technology, as a business-to-business technology-focused chief marketing officer. In very few cases, you're set up for success. In most cases, you're set up for failure. And there's 100 reasons why. And if you'd like to, we can dive into the 116 reasons why current CMOs and B2B technology are set up for failure, but they are. And there's a few that are very successful, but it's got an entire organization behind it. And so you've got the Great Resignation, which means people are reevaluating their satisfaction and their joy out of the job. You've got, as of a few years ago, the average lifespan of a head of marketing in a B2B technology company was 19 months. Now there's no official data, but it's closer. But what I've been hearing and through anecdotal conversations, closer to 17 months. So you're already kind of treated as a virtual or a fractional anyway. And then, on top of that, we've got, people needing to cut budgets aggressively. I'm on every week I'm on a group call with several hundred chief marketing officers in B2B technology. Every Friday morning we get together and we talk. And the last few weeks, I would say the last 3 weeks, it's gone from, excitement, optimism, getting back to events, finding that ROI in the events, to now the conversation is, okay, my board is asking me for a, plan B, for a scenario map of letting go of half of the marketing team, or letting go of everybody except for a few core people, or hunkering down, and how does it look to get outside help versus inside help. So that's a very long-winded way to say, Eric, this is the time that we can solidify, rationalize, and amplify the value of a fractional, virtual, or iCMO.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, the moment seems right. And I think I would just add to that during COVID, people got used to remote work. I mean, this is pretty clear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Companies are really struggling getting people back into the office. But there was a broader acceptance that remote work is okay. And I think there was always some hesitation in the C-suite or in the executive suite to say, well, we don't want to have a remote executive. They need to be here to see if people are sitting in their cubicles, right?
Yeah.
But now I think that that's changed. Have you seen that as well?
I've sort of seen a split.
Okay.
And so I would say more times than not, the companies that are really trying to be employee focused, yes, it is very much that way. And there's a lot more flexibility, and companies are adopting more of an asynchronous communication model versus synchronous. I've also seen companies who are mandating coming back to the office, whether it's 2 days a week, 3 days a week, or whatever. And the feedback is, I go to the office because I have to, and I wind up being on Zoom calls with half the people anyway. So I'm doing the same thing that I was doing at home. It's just in the office, and it's a little bit chaotic. So I think that most companies are embracing that idea of flexible, fractional, but virtual, as far as not being in person, and really doubling down on what does asynchronous productivity look like. We're doing it. I mean, we've got an office, but everybody that we have, except for one person, is in some other state than Colorado. As a business owner, it's a little bit complicated because instead of mastering the art of Colorado employment, I now have to, my CPA tells me here's certain states that are good to find people and certain states that are not good to find people. And I try not to use that as a decision on where to find people, but it's a benefit because I now have, 50 states and maybe other countries as well. We're not there yet, but 50 states at least to where I can find talent versus being limited to people within a 20, 30, 40-mile commute radius.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's so much talent out there in so many different places, and the tools are in place now that we can really leverage it. I always used to joke, for years working in the corporate world, we always had some room on some floor that had a fancy video conferencing setup that nobody used. And
Right.
the technology has been there for a long time, right? But the moment has come where it's been deployed. I'm interested too. So you talk a lot about working with VCs and them bringing you in as a fractional CMO. And VCs have a real benefit, right? They're mentors to many of these companies, right? They have templates. They know what works. They know when people need to come into a business at what particular stage. But for companies that don't have that support, that don't have that sort of mentoring, I think oftentimes it's very unclear when they need to bring in marketing help. Have you found that as well?
Yes, especially technology focused companies.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't have, and by the way, there's a lot of forms of mentorship. There's the VCs, there's private equity, there's also non VC oriented board members. For companies that don't have that level of financial or board level support, there's a lot of great organizations such as EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, YPO, Vistage, that offer levels of support. But what I find in B2B technology companies where you've got the founder that is the technology guru is a strong resistance to the idea of marketing, and almost a theory that marketing is a shortcut if your product isn't good enough.
Right.
And a sense that my product is so good, it should sell itself.
I've heard this
And
before.
there is a concept of product-led growth, and I'm sure you probably talked about this on your show. But the concept of product-led growth is great. And there's probably 1 to 2% of technology companies that are actually doing that. Then you've got the other 80% that are talking the product-led growth message, but they may not actually have a true product-led growth product or strategy or real plan in place. And so, trying to get out of the buzzwords of things. But yes, if there is not really good mentorship in place with the CEO, there tends to be a resistance. And honestly, for me personally, there are a ton of technology companies that I would love to work with. But if they don't understand the network effects and the amplification and the economies of scale you can get with a strong marketing program and a strong growth program, I'm not going to have a lot of success with them as a customer. And I need to go, I'll walk the other way.
It seems like with many of these product-led companies and the great product that they've developed, what I often see, and I'll be interested to hear your feedback on this, is that when I look at the product, it's really a variation of something else that exists. It's not that often that something truly revolutionary comes along. I just finished watching the keynote at Apple's development conference, the most valuable company in the world. And there really wasn't anything new. It was all incremental improvements, which, yes, those are new things, but they were incremental improvements. There wasn't that brand new thing that nobody's ever heard of before.
Right.
And I think when I see so many product-led companies that think the product is going to sell itself, they kind of forget that they're competing with many other things that are very similar.
So I did watch the WWDC. I love more from a presentation style and to understand how they present,
right?
Just as much as, and they are fantastic. I think they're going, as they are doing more virtual, as they're doing less live, it's becoming a little bit over the top, if you will. But the interesting thing is, right before that, I read a book, and I forgot the name of it and the author, but I think it was called like Beyond Steve or After Steve. And it's the story of what's Apple like in a post Steve Jobs and Johnny Ive world. And the innovation may not be there like it was before, because Tim Cook has operational excellence, but he's not a product visionary. And so, to your point, and now they don't just have product-led growth, they have ecosystem-led growth, right? So the products create an ecosystem. That ecosystem creates, variations of products, but they're moving towards a services business just as much as they are a product business. And you can see it in where the revenue comes from. And so they're really doing the most to become an ecosystem-led growth or a services-led growth company, just as much, if not more, than a product-led growth company.
Yeah, it's interesting to take such a big ship and steer it, right? Because they've got so much going on. It's not easy to move some levers anymore. But I think that this whole idea of innovation is really interesting. And I'm curious, when you engage with new clients, what do you see as the number one problem that they are coming to you for to solve? So what is it that they understand they don't have a marketing strategy and say, now is the time we need to build that marketing strategy? Are they stagnating in some area? Is it usually because of a problem, or because they're proactive in saying we need to start to prepare for a marketing strategy so that we can grow?
Yeah, there's two, there's a lot of different ways to explain what people need. But the reality is there's two reasons why people engage with us. Number one, they're finding their product market fit really well, and they're ready to double down on the growth, which means taking what's working and amplifying it. And in that scenario, we are a great fit. We help find, we help test, we help measure, and we help expand. And then once we figured out the things that allow the expansion, we focus on building out the scale. The second reason, which is not always the best reason why people come to us, especially through the VC channels, is we've been flailing and failing and missing our targets, and our salespeople are frustrated, and they just need, and the salespeople are telling us they need marketing, and we don't really know what that looks like. And there's a lot you can do to enable that and empower that. The first scenario is great because it tends to be people that say, we know what we know, but more importantly, we know what we don't know. And so let's build a plan together. The second one is where they are sort of in panic mode. It is more often than not, well, we know what to do. We just haven't been doing enough of it. We just need more of it. So we just need you to do this. And that can be accomplished, but it doesn't always set someone up for success.
Yeah, I tend to see that at companies where there's a VP of sales and marketing, or somebody who has that title where sales and marketing are very closely aligned, because selling and marketing are two different things, right? They require different skill sets. Salespeople want leads, right? And marketers tend to know that you have to have a strategy to develop that over time. There's not a faucet.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, that's interesting. And if I flip the coin around, how do you find new fractional CMOs to work with your business? So you're trying to create a business, right? That's, for lack of a better word, sort of a dating service, right? You're trying to match opportunities with skill sets, and we all have industry experience. We come from different areas, but you're trying to find matches for businesses and fractional CMOs who have experience in those kinds of industries or challenges.
Yeah. So at Grow Powerful, we have a vision that is I love our vision, and that is to assemble the greatest marketing and growth minds in all of B2B technology. And I think because our vision is so specific and really about bringing the best of the best of the best, sorry, Top Gun, but bringing the best of the best of the best together, it really has done great to attract people to us. So we have a form on our website where if somebody wants to apply to be an iCMO, they can apply. And then we take a look at them. And then, I meet with them and I look at several factors. Number one is, have they really had some great success operationally as a chief marketing officer in our target, size and type of company? And so that's number one. Number two is I want to understand their leadership style, because at some point, even though they're a virtual or a fractional or an iCMO, they are going to be leading either a marketing team or managing the manager of the CEO. And I want to understand that. The third thing is, how collaborative are they and how willing are they to look at the processes that we have proven works and can work within that. So we've had hundreds of people apply. I would say over 600 people have applied so far.
That's amazing.
I would say that amazingly, and I would say that half of them were just completely not qualified, never had a CMO or VP of marketing role, never had it. The other half actually have had a CMO or a VP role, may have been qualified, but aren't, the attitude and the culture aren't a good fit. Their ability to, understand and follow our processes are not a good fit. We have scaled, we have fine-tuned it, and we now have, I think, 15 people that are active as operational iCMOs in our circle. And I love them all. Each of them have some greatness that they bring. Each of them are very transparent about their weaknesses. We can serve a client really well to get a company from this point to this point. And then once we reach the capability of that fractional CMO, we can possibly engage some other fractional CMO on our team to really go and take it to the next level as well. So we've had a lot of success. My mission is to have a team of 250 operational iCMOs within 5 years. So we have a lot of work to do, but we're going to do it in stages. So the people I've got on board now, I'm very happy with, and the goal is to get them, get them busy, get them full, get them at capacity, whether their capacity is 40 hours a week or 20 hours a week, or they just want to take on one project additional, is to get them feeling really good and feeling fulfilled in their engagements. And then we'll start to add more fractional CMOs over time.
I'm interested too in your process. Are you looking, or do you today work off some templated strategy? So in other words, everybody on the team follows a similar process, or do you let those individuals and those personalities kind of engage with the companies in a manner that sort of they see fit?
So we have a model we call the 5 phases of market-led growth.
Okay.
And it allows us to look at things from brand, from execution, from content, product market fit, go-to-market strategy. It looks at these different things. And so that, I think, is very organized and something we feel very good about. And part of what that allows us to do is we can use that as when you go to the doctor and you have a chart of the body and you say, point to where it hurts.
Yep.
We use that 5 phases of market-led growth as that entry point to build a plan based on what the biggest pain point the company has is. And then we can develop customized solutions. We try to do everything on a rolling 90-day plan. And we do everything on a very agile, model where we do either 2-week or sometimes 1-week sprints. So that is established. So we use either a Trello board or Asana boards to make sure that we're organized and we're flowing nicely. Having said that, we also, as far as filling in the blanks with what the strategy is and the workshops we need to do to build the plan or the collaboration and how that works, we leave up to every one of our iCMOs, because there is a gift that they have. Every single one of them is 10 times smarter than I am and a way better marketer than I am. I'm an okay marketer. I love branding. I love establishing process, and I'm an okay marketer. But I don't think anybody should hire me to get their growth to happen. They need, the magic that our team brings in as our fractional CMOs. So I'm establishing a process that I know gets us to finding the pain points the quickest and gets us to building a process that works well so we can measure and test and communicate really well with our clients. But everything else, the magic, the secret sauce, the plan and the process, that's up to every one of the fractional CMOs.
It's interesting to me how this space is developing out. I've seen some, what I would call partnerships, where a number of people who are in the space, join a company almost as a partner. They're almost starting a consulting type company, and then they get clients, they farm them out to whoever is the most appropriate. But I think that there's a fair amount of collaboration with the people on those teams as well. And then I've seen things like what you're doing there at Grow, where it's a bit of a matchmaking service where you're bringing in independent people, trying to match them with clients, give them a little bit of structure, and grow that over time. And then I see a lot of independents that are out there just kind of doing their own thing. And I think there's good and bad to all of this, right? There are a lot of businesses that need help.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of businesses really know where to look. And I think that's a huge challenge. And so I think the more that organizations like yours get some scale, get some visibility, it helps everybody in general become more familiar with the concept. Because, all you need to do is do a Google search and you can see that, fractional CMO, virtual, those aren't high ranking search terms, right? People, it's not top of mind, but there are so many businesses out there that need help.
Yeah. So I have seen a lot of different models. So first of all, I think the reason why we got such great response to our iCMO search is because there are so many people that are saying, I want to do something else than working for one company. And so you're seeing a huge growth in that. Then you take the Great Resignation we talked about at the beginning of the show. You talk about the other R word, the recession word, and getting people nervous. And then you've also got this idea that a lot of people are changing their mindset. That's not just about work. There's life, there's family, there's one of my plans when I work with our iCMOs on the compensation models and I talk through several scenarios. One of the scenarios is I want to work 20 hours a week, but I want to spend the rest of the time, remembering my kids. Or I want to work 20 hours a week and I want to do my passion project, which is starting a bike shop, whatever
Yeah.
it might be. We want to let people have that ability, have the freedom and flexibility. And I think there are a lot of people. I imagine there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people that either are doing fractional CMO work, whether they say they are, whether they officially call it that or not. There are thousands upon thousands of people that are using the fractional CMO title. You're seeing job searches. So you're seeing people searching for companies who are looking for fractional CMOs, listing them on LinkedIn, listing them on Indeed. The other thing that I am seeing is full-time operational CMOs who are really taking a serious look at the fractional side of the business. I will consider it successful when I convince hundreds of people to say, I don't want to peddle this one product in this one company anymore. I want to maximize my time that I spend. I want to maximize the money that I make for the time that I work, so I don't have to, be at the mercy of a company. The company works around me. And that's what I think, that's the big mind shift that's happening, is people are not as willing to work away and work away and work away and forget what they're working for.
Yeah.
And so that's a big shift that's happening.
It's interesting that you mentioned job searches and sites like LinkedIn. They have not caught up with the times yet, right? Most job posting boards still require a location. They still require a location, even if nobody is ever expected to go there. And so there's an option to say, well, remote also, but they still require a location. And so it's even difficult on those sites to find potentially remote only jobs or fractional jobs, because it still sort of is defaulting to looking in your home city or wherever you've chosen to look. The speed of change in today's society is pretty remarkable. And I'm curious, so if somebody is doing fractional CMO work or something similar, or they think this is the way they want to go, they want to leave the corporate world, what would you say then would be the ideal candidate for something like Grow?
So I think the biggest challenge that people have to overcome if they are a full-time CMO and looking at this is a mindset shift. There is a perception of a security blanket in working for a company full-time. The benefits, healthcare. I think that, and we do a lot of healthcare tech, a lot of health tech company work. And so I understand a lot about the benefits and a lot about how healthcare companies work. And the perception of dependence and the perception of fear of stepping away from a good benefits program really does scare people. And thinking, well, there's no way I could afford my own healthcare program. Well, if you're making $150,000 or $175,000 a year and you're getting good benefits, that's great. But what if you're making $300,000 a year? That $1,500 a month isn't a whole lot. But people either are or are not wired to do the fractional CMO work. And I think there's, first thing is, do some soul searching. Are you afraid to move away from that corporate security blanket? Even though the average lifespan of a person at a company, like in most cases, is 17 months, it's still a perception, and people can't get out of that perception, and that's okay. Realize you're not a good fit for it, and again, that's okay. But if you feel like you are a good fit for it and you're ready for it, I think there are quite a few Slack channels that are set up for fractional CMOs. There are shows like this that give people the insights. I will say there are a couple of podcast shows, and I think this one is really spot on for the type of people we're talking about. There's other fractional CMO experiences that are more about people who might be copywriters or graphic designers, and it gives them the confidence to call themselves a CMO, but in reality, they're not really a CMO.
Mm.
The thing I would say, and so that sort of leads me to another point, which is make sure you've got a great track record. You've got experiences and case studies and stories that you can bring with you to sell yourself.
Yes.
If you don't have that, you're going to struggle to find business. And then, the other thing selfishly I'll say is go check out growpowerful.io. And we've got a whole iCMO section. And if you want to talk to me about it, you can fill out a form on there and we can have a conversation to see if you're, if it might be a good fit for you or not. But those are a couple of things. But I think first of all, do the soul searching. And then second of all is make sure you've got a good story to tell.
You're so right about job security. I think in the corporate world, you could suddenly find yourself out of a job. But I think if you're a good fractional CMO, you could find yourself working yourself out of a job. A good CMO will have an engagement that empowers the company, and ultimately they may want to hire some full-time people to be able to manage that. But you're so much more in control of that journey than you are in the corporate world, where something could get sliced just because of a bad report to Wall Street.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, like before I moved into this model of really setting other people up for success, I have had a really good run as a fractional CMO. And back to my previous comment, I'm an okay marketer. I'm really not that great. I'm an okay leader, not really that amazing. My gift has been understanding and interpreting marketing for emerging technology CEOs, and then getting them to see what marketing could do for them, and then putting in some things operationally. There are other people that are way more amazing at actually being a CMO and were probably way more natural than me at actually delivering amazing stuff to their clients.
Yeah, it's all about knowing your strengths, right? Where you can really add value to an organization, and then getting the visibility so that people can find you. Brett, I think this has been a really interesting conversation. I love the concept of what you're doing. If you would, just as we close out the show again, remind people where they can get in touch with you on LinkedIn, on the web, and share that with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the easiest thing to do is go to growpowerful.io. So it's growpowerful, one word.io. And you can find us there. You can also search for us, Grow Powerful, on LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn as well. So you see my name down there. There's not many Brett Schklars on LinkedIn. I think I'm the only one. So you can find me there. But I would love to, hear your thoughts. If you are interested in what we are doing, please, come our way and talk to us. I would love to have a conversation.
That's great. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate your time today. This is a fascinating topic to discuss. It's fun to see how this industry is changing and evolving. And I think that the stuff that you're doing there at Grow is super interesting for people. So I hope they'll go check it out.
Awesome. Well, Eric, thank you so much. I appreciate you giving me the time to share some ideas with you.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
You bet.